Welcome back, everyone. In today's episode, I want to take you through the moment everything became real for me, the initial diagnosis. If you're a man watching this because you're worried about your prostate health, or maybe you've just gotten some confusing test results, this one's especially for you. My journey really began in 2023 with a simple blood test. My PSA came back at 5.3. Now, for anyone who's not familiar, PSA stands for prostate specific antigen. It's a protein your prostate makes. When the number is higher than expected, it can be a sign that something's going on, sometimes an infection, sometimes enlargement, and yes, sometimes cancer. A 5.3 isn't really sky high, but it was high enough for my doctor to say, let's take a closer look. And that's how I ended up being scheduled for a biopsy. If you've never had a prostate biopsy, let me break it down in plain language. It's not fun, but it's also not something to fear. The doctor uses imaging to guide a small needle that takes tiny samples from different parts of the prostate. The basic procedure is referenced as a 12-core biopsy, which really means that they sample in 12 areas of the prostate to try to identify where, if any, is the cancer located. As I stated up front, I will be honest and direct in this video series, and this is definitely one of those times. The equipment that is used during the procedure will make a loud clicking noise. That is when the needle extracts the tiny sample of tissue. You will feel the sample being extracted. Yeah, there's a numbing cream that's applied prior to the procedure, but I just have to tell you, it didn't do much. You're counting down the 12 clicks for it to be over. Trust me. It's quick, it's outpatient, and you go home the same day. For me, the hardest part wasn't the procedure. It was the waiting afterwards. You're sitting there with this cloud over your head, wondering what those little tissue samples are going to reveal. The results take about 10 to 13 days. As I said in the last episode, more waiting. When the results came back, that's when I heard the words no one wants to hear. You have prostate cancer, Mr. Wagner. The biopsy results will also include something called the Gleason Score. If you're new to this, the Gleason Score is basically a grading system. It tells you how aggressive the cancer cells look under a microscope. The pathologist gives two numbers, one for the most common pattern of cells and one for the second most common pattern. And then they add them together. The lower the score means the cancer cells look more like normal cells. Higher scores mean that they look more irregular and tend to grow faster. It's not a perfect system, but it helps guide treatment decisions. When I heard my score, which was a 6, it suddenly made everything feel real. It wasn't just a number on a lab report anymore. It was my cancer, my body, my future. What was next? I want to be honest here. If you think you've prepared, even if you've told yourself you can handle it, hearing you have cancer, Mr. Wagner, hits you in a way nothing else does. The statistics are 1 in 8. Why am I the one? For me, it was a mix of fear, disbelief, and this strange sense of urgency, like the clock had suddenly started ticking louder. And if you felt that, or if you're feeling it right now, you're not alone. The reaction is real. The reaction is human. Once the shock of the news settles in, the next phase begins. Decision time. Now what do I do? What treatment path do you take? What's the right balance between effectiveness and quality of life? The next steps are the consultations of choices. There were 3: external radiation, internal radiation or brachytherapy, or a prostatectomy. For me, after talking with my doctors and learning about my options, I ultimately chose brachytherapy, a form of low-dose internal radiation, or as my urologist called it, the ring of fire. But that decision didn't happen overnight for me. It took some research, conversations, and a lot of personal reflection. Ultimately, I decided it was the best decision for me at the time. But I also want to mention one very important fact that wasn't disclosed to me by either the surgeon for the prostatectomy or the radiation urologist. And that is, if you receive radiation as your choice of treatment, you cannot have a prostatectomy. That is a very important fact for you to consider. Let me say this. I wish I would have known that. So that's the story of how my diagnosis unfolded from a PSA of 5.3 to a biopsy to a Gleason score of 6 to hearing the words that changed everything for me. You have cancer, Mr. Wagner. My hope is that by sharing this, more men will understand the early steps, recognize the signs, and feel empowered to take action sooner rather than later. In the next episode, I'll walk you through how I chose my treatment path and what the brachytherapy process was really like. Thanks for watching. Take care.